Oh, hello, this is Tak Chung from Walk with Tak. This morning I was met by the cloudy day when I first walked out of the house onto the country road. But the sun was not to be shut out by the clouds and looked for any opportunity to come through the clouds. And for about 10 minutes, the sky was an amazing light show, and the great Midwestern plain is the best place to see it. The crops are growing fast after the thunderstorm 2 days ago, and the vast expanse of soybean and cornfields both impresses me and depresses me at the same time. Okay, let's go to today's video on how to cook a perfect stir-fry salmon vegetable medley dish, at least according to my standard. This salmon vegetable dish actually uses two cooking techniques. Both of them take place in the wok. In this video, I would like to discuss with you how these two cooking techniques could be combined together in cooking a dish in the most efficient way. I'm going to cook this dish in my Cucina 14-inch stainless steel wok by starting out with 2 tablespoons of canola oil. And the reason that I choose the Cucina 14-inch stainless steel wok as my everyday cooking wok is because of its versatility. It has a larger flat surface bottom, actually it's about 9 inches across, the size of a small frying pan. This makes this wok very versatile, allow it to use for different types of cooking functions. Now, because it's a stainless steel wok, I season it each time before I start to cook using my spot seasoning method. The first step in cooking this dish is to pan fry the salmon. I cut the salmon into 1 inch by 2 inch in size. This is an important step of this cooking template because by cutting them into this size, it facilitates the cooking speed. However, in addition to make the salmon cook faster, it also makes them cook more evenly. Some people would think the quality of the salmon is not as good by cutting them into small pieces, and I used to think this way myself. But it actually just the opposite. In fact, the salmon quality is superior like this than when you cook it in an entire piece. Based on my personal experience, the most important consideration when you cook salmon is to make sure that the salmon is fresh and have never been frozen. I purchase my salmon from Aldi, and they usually come in about 1 pound portion with the skin on. And the quality of the salmon that I have purchased from them has always been excellent. An excellent way to cook this salmon is because you can fry the salmon skin. And because of the fat present underneath the skin, it gives them a wonderful crispy texture. So one important step in cooking the salmon is to make sure you cook the salmon with skin down and fry them until they start to char. And it takes about somewhere between 60 to 90 seconds to create a crispy texture of the salmon skin. In the past, when we bake salmon, we always remove the skin because the skin tastes too oily. But using this method, the skin will be very nice, crisp, and not feel oily at all. The next step is to turn over the salmon to fry the fresh side of the salmon. This is also important because it seals the salmon. It not only prevents the salmon pieces from falling apart, but it also seals in the moisture. Using this method, it takes about somewhere between 2 to 3 minutes to pan fry the salmon. In my mind, this is probably the best way to cook salmon, and you will not be disappointed by the result. The next step is to add the vegetables. I'll start with approximately 2.5 cups of asparagus, followed by about 1.5 cups of white button mushrooms. And by this point, the salmon is probably about 80 to 90% cooked, and it will finish cooking as I cook the vegetables. And there are a couple of reasons that I choose asparagus and mushroom to go with this dish, because both of these food ingredients only need to be very lightly cooked. I do not add any additional cooking oil because the oil that remains in the wok will be sufficient to cook these two vegetable ingredients. And the method that I'm going to use in stir-frying this dish is referred to as dry stir-frying. The reason is that because I'm not going to add any moisture to the dish, except I'm going to add some seasoning sauce, and that's about it. This is an excellent method to stir-fry vegetables because the dry heat will seal the vegetables. The two additional ingredients I'm going to add first is some cherry tomatoes. I add the cherry tomatoes after I add the asparagus and mushroom because I want to retain the constituents of the cherry tomatoes. And I do not cut up the cherry tomatoes because I like the juice that squirt out from the cherry tomatoes when I bite into them. And by lightly cook the cherry tomatoes, I will retain the flavor of the cherry tomatoes. The final ingredients I'm going to add to this dish is some color bell peppers. Again, the main reason that I add the color bell peppers toward the end of the cooking process because I only want to cook them very lightly. This way, I will be able to maintain the crispy texture of the bell pepper as well as to keep their sweetness. To season this dish, I'm going to use about 1.5 tablespoons of oyster sauce. And then I use 1 tablespoon of a teriyaki sauce made by a company known as Fuchsia. This seasoning strategy will give a very light teriyaki sauce that is excellent for salmon. I use the method which I call flavor chasing to find the flavor that I enjoy by experimenting with different types of sauces. I call this method dry stir-frying because in addition to the small amount of sauces that I add, I do not add any additional moisture, so the dish comes with a very light sauce. You can consider this light sauce as a way to help the ingredients to preserve their natural flavor. Cooking this dish is very fast. It takes about 15 minutes from the time I walk into the kitchen to the dinner to be served on the table. This dish is a good combination of a protein sauce which is from the salmon, and I use about 8 ounces of salmon. This dish has 4 different kinds of vegetables. And the method in cooking this dish is frequently known as sequential cooking, because I cook them in the order how I would like the final texture of the food ingredients. I first start out with the salmon because it takes the longest time to cook. And when the salmon is about 80% cooked, I start to introduce the other ingredients. First with the asparagus and mushroom that would take longer time to cook in compared to the tomatoes and the color bell peppers. Even though the time differences is relatively small, but the end result can create amazing texture for the different food ingredients, so they will be just perfectly cooked. This dish, all the ingredients are cooked just to the right texture. And this is one of the greatest advantage of stir-fry as well as cooking in a wok. By timing when you are going to add the ingredients to the wok and how you're going to cook them, you can create a complex dish where all the ingredients are cooked just to the right texture. Once you become good at stir-frying and able to read the signs of how each of the ingredients is being cooked, you can create truly amazing dishes. Well, partly because I know exactly how I like my food ingredients in a dish, I will call this to be my perfect dish because everything is cooked exactly the way how I like it. This is the benefit of my fast cooking system. With flavor chasing, advanced prepping, stir-frying, and template-based cooking, you are able to cook anything you like within a very short amount of time. I truly believe my fast cooking system is a cooking system for the 21st century. It is practical, efficient, and fun that will allow you to make home cooking as part of your daily routines. And if you'd like to learn more about as well as to adopt my cooking system, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. So keep on cooking. I will see you tomorrow.